West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
I saw this meme that was very funny on Instagram, I believe it was, and it said it's amazing. At first it was the codes to the nuclear weapons. Right. Now it's invisible classified documents.
I have not specifically spoken to the president about what nuclear materials may or may not have been in there. I do not believe there were any in there.
Haven't you now? Trump's lawyers have been denying and joking about the possibility of nuclear secrets being stashed at Trump's home. Now, new reporting indicates it's no joke, but Republicans are still defending him. We begin tonight with Steve Bannon, the former White House chief strategist who is back in the news, usually for two reasons, such as attempting to dismantle the West or, as in this case, trouble with the law. 2 years ago, Bannon was dragged off a billionaire's luxury yacht in handcuffs, charged with defrauding donors as part of a fundraising scam purportedly aimed at funding Trump's border wall that Mexico was supposed to pay for. Now, racism can be profitable at times, allowing Bannon to line his pockets with nearly $1 million in sweet wall donations that he, of course, used to fund a lavish lifestyle instead of a wall. After Trump pardoned Bannon for milking his own supporters, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office opened its own investigation. And that's because presidential pardons, well, they only apply to federal charges and cannot prohibit state prosecutions. Bannon is now traveling to New York City to prepare to surrender in the morning to face charges in a new indictment that remains sealed. The precise details of the state case are unknown. But sources told the Washington Post that the prosecution will likely mirror the federal case. Bannon was once known as the man behind Trump, a disruptor, hell-bent on ensuring that white nationalism had a seat in the Oval Office. This is Trump's guy, now likely to join the club of Trump allies who have served time for Trump. For a group obsessed with locking her up, Trump's inner circle knows a thing or two about being behind bars or behind walls. Trump's people, well, they can go to jail, forced to face justice. So why not him? The Bannon case proves this point. I mean, it will be handled in New York State Supreme Court by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, the same Alvin Bragg who declined to file criminal charges against Trump, leading two senior prosecutors to resign. Meaning the prosecutor that's taking down Bannon is the same prosecutor who essentially let Trump off the hook. After all these years, Teflon Don still stands, even as he reportedly stashed a foreign government's nuclear secrets at his Mar-a-Lago club. That's surreal, bonkers, terrifying sentence I just said is actually a real thing happening in real life. The Washington Post reported that a document the FBI seized at Trump's crib described a foreign government's military defenses, including its nuclear capabilities. And some of the seized documents detailed top secret U.S. operations so closely guarded that many senior national security officials are kept in the dark about them. The recklessness is astonishing. And yet, Trump claims it's all a hoax. His attorney even mocked the allegation the same day that this news came out. Trump's litany of excuses seem almost perverse at this point. That he declassified ultra-secret national security secrets on a foreign nation. Nuclear secrets. With just a wave of his Trumpy magic wand. Yeah, that is not a thing. That he was transferring them to his presidential library. Also a no. That the documents do not even belong to the United States government. Sounded like quite the child and the dictator. It's not theirs. It's mine, 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 mine. Trump has always been a serious threat to national security of the United States. A disaster, frankly. Doing things that no one else would or could get away with. Not even his friends. Teflon Don. When will accountability actually stick to him? Joining me now, Michael Cohen, Trump's former personal attorney and host of the Mea Culpa podcast, Mark Polymeropoulos, MSNBC national security analyst and former CIA officer, and Paul Butler, MSNBC legal analyst and a former federal prosecutor. And I'm going to start with you, Paul, because I'm sorry, but this was the subject of our 11 o'clock call. We do an 11 o'clock call in the show. We talk it out for like an hour. And this was my thing that I could not get away from. How in the hell is Donald Trump so impervious to justice? This guy has not paid taxes his whole adult life, except when he worked for the same company I do, when he was on The Apprentice. He's gotten away with tax fraud, insurance fraud, defrauding the American government, enriching himself off the presidency, and now stealing government documents, including nuclear secrets. He's untouchable. Why?
In this case, because of Judge Cannon. She admitted that she's treating this case differently because it involves a former president. But Joy, as you know, in our criminal legal system, no one is supposed to be above the law. And so when the judge starts giving Trump special consideration, she basically has to make up a whole new procedure just for former presidents. And that's pretty much what she did. First, the judge blesses Donald Trump with a special master to review documents that under the law don't even belong to him. And then the judge orders DOJ to stop parts of its criminal investigation that almost certainly exceeds her authority. It's just not a good look for the appearance of justice when a judge appointed by Donald Trump extends to Donald Trump benefits that no other subject of a search warrant would get, and that will almost certainly substantially delay the criminal investigation.
And that no one will ever get. Let me play a witness in the defense of what I just said. His name is Donald J. Trump. This is what Donald J. Trump said about the handling of classified documents and how that should be dealt with.
We can't have someone in the Oval Office who doesn't understand the meaning of the word confidential or classified. This was not just extreme carelessness with classified material, which is still totally disqualifying. This is calculated, deliberate, premeditated misconduct, followed by a cover-up.
Mark Polymeropoulos, these comments were about Hillary Clinton. He said the same about James Comey. He said the same about John Bolton. From a national security professional standpoint, from your standpoint, how is it possible that a man can steal national security secrets of the United States and of another country, maybe an ally, maybe an enemy, take him home, and not have any consequences whatsoever?
So, Joyce, I really think we have to leave it to the FBI, and I think that's why the appointment of the special master is a little troubling. This is going to delay the FBI's role in this. This is not like wine; it doesn't age well. Bad news does not get better over time. But I think the Washington Post reporting was really interesting. First and foremost, it's concerning because you have, of course, information potentially about either our adversary or an ally's nuclear program. You have things. Information there about special access programs, which is really the crown jewels of the United States government. But here's why it's really important, because I think it really reinforces what the Department of Justice and the FBI did, which was to search Mar-a-Lago. And that is really, really significant when you have, large majorities of the American public still questioning this. I think we can put to bed the notion this is a storage problem. And we really have to let the FBI do its work. Remember, Bill Barr, former Attorney General, came out over the weekend really in favor of this, and he was a CIA employee for the beginning of his career. He was an attorney in CIA. He knows a bit about classified information. I think Donald Trump's in trouble, and we really need the FBI to jump in and conduct the investigation and really in a timely manner.
Is he in trouble, though? Michael Cohen, the reason I want to talk to you today, because is he in trouble, really? Because this guy's been committing crimes basically for his entire adult life. His dad didn't pay taxes. He doesn't pay taxes. He defrauds the insurance companies of New York. He defrauds the taxpayers of New York. He defrauds the United States IRS. He literally appears to be a crime machine. And no one will stop him. No one can stop him. He could literally, at this point, I think he was right, he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue in New York City, in the middle of the street, and no one would touch him. He's unbloody touchable. Please explain. You know the guy. How?
Yeah, I'm not so sure I agree with that statement. Yes, he's gotten away with so much already, from obstruction of justice, witness tampering, tax fraud, wire fraud, bank fraud, misrepresentations. He's gotten away with a litany of things. However, and this makes me scratch my head, the taking of classified documents, nuclear, top secret documents, should no longer be a Republican versus a Democratic issue. And I listen to all of the pundits on television, whether it's, this station, CNN, Fox, I listen to them all. This is an American issue, and I don't understand what we're doing. It's not a question of whether the law is being applied equally to all. It is not. For God's sakes, the DOJ, they're tiptoeing around Donald as if he was the king, right? The supreme leader or a monarch. And again, he is not. So, like what you said before, if the adage that no one is above the law holds true, then Donald should have been indicted already and facing consequences. But I'll tell you what I do think is going to happen. I think that there's going to be an indictment, and relatively soon. I believe there will also be congressional hearings with Donald in the hot seat, where, either he'll come in willingly, which, I don't think he will, or via subpoena, where, the real questions that they have to be asking right now is, where are the documents that were in these empty top secret files that were found at Mar-a-Lago? That's really the big question. And who did Donald give them to or show them to? Because like you've also said, and I've been saying it since day number one, Joy, Donald is a clear and present danger to the national security and safety of this country. And if this doesn't prove it, I'm not sure that anything will. So I agree with you, but I don't agree with you in the fact that he's not going to be held accountable for this. This is too big at this point in time.
It is Thursday, the 8th of September of 2022, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays, a little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. Hey, you better put some iodine in your salt, or is it iodide? They keep going back and forth on what is going to help your thyroid. Well, the table salt that you use will have what you need. I would suspect that most of the sea salt that you have in a grinder doesn't. So just be clear about that. You never know when Donald Trump is going to stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue, or is it Times Square? Wherever. He's going to stand in the middle of New York and sell Lavrov some nuke secrets, and I can assure you that the radioactive fallout will kill everybody in about a 6-mile radius. Certainly they will. And that a little bit further out, you're still going to die. It might take a little while. Just a little. Might take a little while. Okay, well, I guess Podesta's risotto recipe was much more of a classified secret that either she was keeping it to herself, or she was just letting hostile foreign powers use it willy-nilly at their state dinners. And that could not stand, and so they hounded Hillary for years and years and years just over that but her emails. Stopped her election in its tracks right before people were going to vote. Oh, yeah, she's under criminal indictment. Oh, our mistake. No, she's not. Oh, thanks. Okay. And look what we got. This guy can do no wrong. Well, let's put it this way. This guy can do every wrong and nothing happens. Apparently nothing happens. He can buy himself out of it most of the time if he has to. I don't think he's the one buying himself out. Somebody else has to, move the money and not let him know because he's, Donald Trump. And the world revolves in a different way when you are Donald Trump. A lot of times when you come across these personalities, they are not allowed to roam free in the wild. And if they are, people kind of steer clear. But when you got money, I guess you can destroy the hotel room and then buy the hotel just to rub their faces in it. I'm buying this hotel so I can destroy a hotel room at my leisure. And they do. Okay. And apparently there's enough Americans out there who want to do the same thing. I just wish I could destroy a hotel room and democracy in the process. Yeah. Okay. Who do we blame? The parents? I don't know. All I know is that my kid, when he was alive, sure didn't hew to the Trump line. He was out there in the front lines taking on the Proud Boys as they marched in front of the Salem Capitol. Oregon, that is. Yeah. And he was a pretty big kid. With a bullhorn, too. You want to bring your bullhorn? I got mine as well. He didn't put it that way, but I do. So, I don't know. Could it be decades and decades and decades of, if there was civics taught, it was by the football coach. Oh, they know all about civics. Well, there could be civics teachers who just happen to teach or to coach football. But most of the time, the coaches are like, I don't know, what can you do? I can add 2 + 2 and carry a 1. Okay, well, you teach civics then. Okay. Hut. Sometimes that would happen that way. Then there were others, I don't know, maybe I do remember quite a few football coaches teaching government. I think that's what we called it by the time I got to high school. When they were starting to phase it out. We had some rigorous civics education even in Catholic school. Even in Catholic school, of all places. And public school, the same thing when I finally went to public school in California in 5th grade. Boy, was that a culture shock. You mean... I don't know. I don't know if I wanted to blame public school necessarily, but by and large, it wasn't as rigorous as what I had experienced. And my parents actually sought out the most rigorous program, and that's the school district we moved to. When parents did that sort of thing, and good. Yeah, there were wide open spaces there in SoCal, and they got filled up pretty darn quick in retrospect. But anyway, we had rigorous civics from grade school on, and yeah. And then when we got to high school, the football coach. Not all the time. We had an English teacher that also taught civics, and I must say, got a lot of my understanding about government from a very astute English teacher at that, who happened to teach civics. She didn't coach anything, not one thing. So, do we blame the football coaches of America for teaching civics as it is? If you're looking at Tuberville, maybe. You know, I did a breakdown in Tuberville's coach salary when he was a coach in college, university. His yearly salary would have carried the yearly salary of 28 tenured professors. 28. All right. Well, you got to put your eggs in what's more important, right? Let them hatch. I guess that's what it is. Jeez. All right. The metaphors are falling flat today. But let's spice things up since it is Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. And this is where we have a little bit of jambalaya and a little bit of spice in your life. So why don't we give a bit of a rundown on what we have in store for you. And at the top, yes, Michael Cohen, quoting Michael Cohen. I'm not going to do his accent. I'll save that for another day. The DOJ, they're tiptoeing around Donald as if he was the king, the supreme leader, or a monarch. Yeah. Well, there's a reason for that. And it's because they got a packed court with a bunch of judicial brown shirts just put there on purpose to mess things up in a crystal knocked and a night of the long knives of their own making. Yeah. Okay, well, on the rest of the menu, unlike Texas recently, California kept the lights on after another day of grid-straining heat. That's what we call it, grid-straining. And you know what it took? Appealing to people's sense of community and civic responsibility. Fancy that. Yes, and amid relentless disinformation campaigns, harassment, and death threats, Georgia's most populous county cannot find a director of elections to hire. That's how you get rid of civic-mindedness. What is it again? Disinformation campaigns, relentless ones at that, relentless harassment, and relentless death threats. That is how you squash the civic-minded. And your MAGAt uncle will insist the IRS move toward free e-filing to end years of corporate domination could be communism. Could be. After the break, we move to the chef's table where Albania cut ties with Iran and expelled the country's embassy staff over a major cyber attack nearly 2 months ago. They had to mull it over. And the European Union wants a price cap on Russian gas. Yeah, don't we all? All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the left of that chat room link, across the page near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the link to our Patreon page, and become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio because it will help us fulfill our civic duty to stop the dark forces arrayed against not only the United States of America, but representative democracy around the world. And I kid you not, if you could afford to send us what you might spend on an espresso-type coffee drink once a month, that helps us pay those bills that we have mentioned in previous shows. And by just dint of the fact that we pay our bills, we're somehow still able, after all these years, 11 to be exact, well, more than 11 to be exact, to fly under the radar and continue this resistance against those said dark forces. So if you could afford to send those funds our way, it would really help. And the bills keep increasing in cost. How dare they? But that's the way of the world. And the only way to fly under the radar is sometimes, give unto Caesar. And we do. So thank you for allowing us to fulfill that civic duty as the founders originally intended so many, many, many years ago. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, please do. And you can do that at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thank you, Tom. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I happen to post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos 10 minutes before showtime. And you can find the links to those show notes and links by following the links on my Twitter profile page. Just click on me at Justice Putnam. There you go. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. And I should add that you can also gain access to the deep archive of the Netroots Radio Library for those 11 plus years, to be exact, at the Internet Archive at archive.org. Indeed. Okay, let us now tuck into this first offering. That's a bit of a culinary term, if you don't know. We use ancient language from ancient cookbooks from ancient times to, give you a little bit of flavor of the world. And we do. Well, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, is out of the Associated Press by John Anzac and Brian Melly. California avoided rolling out outages during extreme heat yesterday, Wednesday, as operators of the state's electricity grid continued to warn that unprecedented demand on energy supplies could force them to periodically cut power to some customers. The California Independent System Operator thanked California residents and businesses for heeding another flex alert. And that is a request to reduce electricity consumption during peak evening hours. With your help, we made it through another day without rotating power outages, Cal ISO said on Twitter Cal ISO said on Twitter after the alert expired at 9 p.m. Targeted blackouts were avoided a day after miscommunication led utilities to mistakenly cut power to customers in several California cities. The confusion occurred on Tuesday afternoon between a dispatcher at the Northern California Power Agency, which owns and operates power generating facilities for 16 members, including a dozen cities, and the California Independent System Operator, as the grid it manages was perilously close to running out of energy amid record-breaking temperatures. That is certainly concerning to me. Elliot Mainzer, president and CEO of Cal ISO, said there was a lot happening on the grid for everybody last night, and so we'll double down on the communications to make sure that doesn't happen again. Last night being when he was speaking about Tuesday. With record demand on power supplies across the West, California snapped its record energy use around 5 p.m. on Tuesday, with 52,061 megawatts, far above the previous high of 50,270 megawatts set on July 24th of 2006. As residents and businesses cranked air conditioning to escape withering heat across the West, and solar power supplies began to wane, Cal ISO issued a Stage 3 energy emergency alert to prepare utilities to initiate outages if demand did not decrease. With the state on the brink of outages, Governor Gavin Newsom, for the first time, triggered a wireless emergency alert system at 5:45 p.m. on Tuesday that sent messages to 27 million cell phones urging them to turn off or reduce non-essential power. Within moments, there was a reduction of more than 2,000 megawatts, bringing the state back from the edge. Matthew Brown of the Washington Post brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grist Thursdays. It is in many ways an ideal job for a public servant with a passion for democracy, the chance to facilitate voting in Georgia's most populous county, the electoral center of one of the most important political backgrounds in the nation. Yet, for 10 months, local leaders have been unable to hire a permanent director to run the Department of Registration and Elections in Fulton County, home to Atlanta. The previous director resigned in November and left the position in April after pressure from local lawmakers and the turmoil of the 2020 election, when county staff endured death threats, baseless conspiracy theories, high-stakes audits, and harassment from former President Donald Trump and his allies. Now, with Georgia in another highly charged campaign season and poised to play a pivotal role in the next presidential election, many here think the toxic swirl of state politics, national scrutiny, ongoing harassment, and long-standing logistical issues has turned off potentially strong candidates and cast a shadow over the office itself. Well, I got to tell you, this playbook has a certain Teutonic ring to it, I have to tell you. The staff has worked through the uncertainty of an interim director, but the county has been slow to implement changes mandated by a sweeping new election law, which was to update its voting equipment, finalize plans with key contractors, and recruit new polling sites and workers for the midterm election that is 2 months away. There are worries that this could lead to more mistakes, the sort that can lead to accusations of fraud. Well, isn't that part of the gambit? Isn't that part of the strategy? Across the country over the past 2 years, waves of election officials have quit because of unprecedented harassment and pressure to conduct elections flawlessly with limited resources. The time-intensive jobs, which usually pay less than comparable executive positions in the private sector, also are unattractive to many workers in a tight labor market. Election experts say the previous Fulton County director was paid $178,000 a year. With all of these challenges, some communities are struggling to hire qualified replacements, and the problem is expected to worsen. Once again, a feature, not a bug. Jacob Bogut of the Washington Post brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grist Thursdays. Electronic tax filing could soon be as simple as a few clicks on a government website, free of charge. The IRS will spend $15 million studying a free government-backed tax filing system under a provision in the sweeping climate and healthcare law that Congress passed this summer. It's a landmark step toward overhauling the way most Americans file their taxes and ending years of domination of tax prep by private corporations. Democrats have long lamented that millions of Americans pay for the privilege of filing taxes and that corporate tax services take money from the neediest households. Hardly anyone uses the free e-filing options that industry supports because of restrictions on which returns qualify. But the IRS has lacked the funding or the clout to outmaneuver private lobbyists to seriously consider its own e-filing platform, current and former officials say, forcing taxpayers instead to deal with a consortium of private providers and setting the agency back decades in technology and customer service. The IRS is completely beholden to the software companies at this point because it just does not have anything to replace them, said Nina Olson, who served as the National Taxpayer Advocate, the IRS's internal consumer rights watchdog from 2001 to 2019. The commercial tax prep industry is gargantuan, with $11.9 billion in 2022. And the largest players, Intuit, TurboTax, and H&R Block, offer narrowly tailored free e-filing options and charge $59 and $55 respectively for their lowest paid tiers, plus variable filing fees and costs for state tax returns. Tax experts say a government-backed system could give more Americans access to free and trustworthy services while increasing IRS efficiency by encouraging more taxpayers to file easy-to-process digital returns rather than the cumbersome paper ones. Well, we can only hope, can't we? All right, that brings us to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. When you think of pollinators, what comes to mind? Bees, butterflies, maybe hummingbirds? Well, how about flies?
Flies in general are the second most important group of pollinating insects. So I think that they deserve more credit than they often get.
C. Scott Clem is an insect ecologist at the University of Georgia, and he's been studying a type of fly known as a hoverfly. You may have actually seen them before, masquerading as bees and wasps.
They tend to be yellow and black colored, and they're kind of different from other flies in that regard. They're these little insects that you often find visiting flowers, or sometimes they'll actually land on your skin, seeking the salt on your skin.
By studying isotopes in the insect's legs and wings, Clem and his colleagues have now determined that some of these flies make a remarkable autumn migration. They seem to originate near Ontario, Canada, and then they fly hundreds of miles south to central Illinois. And it's possible that some go even further, thousands of miles perhaps.
They get up in high altitude air currents. They're able to just surf on these winds, basically, and it takes them these vast distances.
The results appear in the journal Ecological Monographs. As for why the flies migrate, Well, Clem says they might be pursuing the aphids they eat southward, or maybe they're following the blooms of nectar-rich flowers.
And if they're moving, they could be moving these ecological services across the continent on an annual basis.
The scientists write that the flies could be transporting billions of grains of pollen across the continent, all while working to exterminate pests. So even if hoverflies' bee-like appearance is mere mimicry, the ecological services they provide could very well be the real deal. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Hey kids and parents, it's back to school time. As you shop for school supplies and get ready for class, make sure you have emergency plans in place. Did you know that emergency preparedness plays a major role in school life? Throughout the year, schools actively prepare for natural disasters, outbreaks, and other emergency situations. Students and parents need to be aware and learn what to do during an emergency. Every family should build an emergency kit, make a family disaster plan, and be informed about events that could affect their community. Parents, take a few extra steps to help children be prepared. Make sure they know the full name, address, and phone numbers of parents or guardians. In our high-tech world of cell phones, memorizing emergency phone numbers is very important. Include a copy of this information in their backpack. Other items to keep in their backpack include water and non-perishable snacks, a pocket-sized first aid kit, a whistle to alert others for help, and a list of allergies, medical conditions, and medications. Make sure their school and teacher have a copy, too. Be familiar with different routes and ways to travel home, like walking, taking the bus, or riding home with another student who lives nearby. Establish a secret code word with your child and whoever takes them home from school to protect against an unauthorized person picking them up. This list is a great starting point to prepare your student for the upcoming school year. Customize these steps to fit your child's capabilities and needs. Ask school administrators and teachers about emergency preparedness plans so you know what steps they are taking to keep your child safe. Many schools have guidelines on how to shelter in place during natural disasters, how to secure classrooms during an emergency lockdown, and how to teach preparedness curriculum to students. Remember, emergency preparedness is important for everyone. Children who are prepared are more confident during stressful emergency situations. By following preparedness guidelines, parents, children, and school staff can improve their safety and peace of mind. For more information on school emergency preparedness, visit cdc.gov/children/schools. To learn more about disasters and emergency preparedness, follow @CDC Emergency on Twitter or visit emergency.cdc.gov. So, let's get prepared. Have a great school year.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
I was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean when it happened. There was a sudden jolt and our submarine crashed on the seafloor. We were in total darkness.
That's Dr. Dejana Figueroa, a marine biologist and STEM teacher, talking about a deep sea dive she'll never forget.
It's funny, when I was a kid, I was afraid of the ocean. And there I was, 2 miles below the surface. But as a scientist, you prepare for that. Using our training and a little creativity, we fixed the sub and finished our experiments. The dive was just too important. Every dive gives us glimpses at things few people ever get to see. Glowing creatures, fiery undersea volcanoes. When we got back to the surface, I kissed the ground and called my mom, of course. But you know what? I wouldn't trade that dive for anything.
Dr. Figueroa uses her passion for STEM to discover new things and make the world a better place. She can STEM, so can you. Check out She Can STEM for more stories and inspiration. A message from the Ad Council.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Good eating habits developed in childhood can last a lifetime, but getting children to eat their fruits and vegetables is a common problem. Eating them adds important nutrients, helps control weight, and reduces the risks for many serious illnesses. Children in the U.S. are eating more fruit, However, 60% of children get fewer fruits than recommended, and 93% don't get enough vegetables. Childcare, schools, and school districts can help change this by meeting or exceeding federal nutrition standards for meals and snacks, including fruits and vegetables wherever food is offered, and helping children learn about and taste fruits and vegetables. At home, parents can eat a variety of fruits and vegetables with their children and provide them as snacks, even if it takes many tries. Also, parents can include their children when shopping for, growing, and preparing fruits and vegetables. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage. Because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
What is the Speech and Debate Clause, and why should you care? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. In November 2020, Senator Lindsey Graham made telephone calls to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, the state official responsible for overseeing elections. State prosecutors now want Senator Graham to testify before the state grand jury that is investigating potential illegalities surrounding the 2020 presidential election in that state. But Senator Graham is claiming in federal court that he can't be required to testify because of the Speech and Debate Clause. The Speech and Debate Clause, part of Article 1, which sets forth the powers of Congress, says that senators and representatives for any speech or debate in the House or the Senate shall not be questioned in any other place. And the Supreme Court has clearly ruled that the Speech and Debate Clause extends to legislative activities that are part of the elected official's job. So, with regard to Senator Graham's case, the Federal District Court has ruled that the Speech and Debate Clause does shield Senator Graham from having to answer questions that would intrude on his legislative fact-finding. But the court also ruled that the Speech and Debate Clause does not prevent questions that would inquire about potentially pressuring election officials to change the election results and related matters. The case now heads back to the Court of Appeals, where Mr. Graham's brief is due by October 11th. An important decision on the Speech and Debate Clause is forthcoming. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
Make sure you're registered to vote. Go to rockthevote.org. Vote for Democrats up and down the ticket. This message, a public service from all the fine people of netrootsradio.com.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1901. That was the day that Francisco Ferrer opened the Escuela Mardina in Barcelona, Spain. Ferrer was an anarchist and educator. He explained what he had hoped to accomplish with these new schools. He said there must be co-education of the different social classes as well as of the two sexes. Spain's literacy rate was only 15% at the time. The Catholic Church controlled the schools and the curriculum that was taught. Ferrer's idea of co-ed secular schools caught on. More modern schools opened in Spain. 40 operated in Barcelona alone. Soon, other modern schools opened throughout Spain. The Catholic Church and the Spanish government were not pleased with these new educational institutions that stood outside of their control. In 1906, after an anarchist threw a bomb at the king, Ferrer was held responsible. His schools were immediately closed, and he was imprisoned. When he was finally acquitted of the charges, he reopened his school. In 1909, Spain began drafting soldiers to help control the colony of Morocco. Workers protested by striking in Barcelona factories. The government responded with a crackdown that came to be known as the Tragic Week. The government sent in troops, took over the city of Barcelona, and killed perhaps as many as 600 workers. After the strike was crushed, 450 workers were sentenced to prison. 5 were executed. The last person to die was Francisco Ferrer. During the uprising, he had been on his farm outside of the city. Despite this, he was charged as being the leader of the insurrection. When facing the firing squad, his final words were reported to be, "Look well, my children, I am innocent. Long live the Escuela Moderna." Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. We always begin, whether from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 61 degrees Fahrenheit, which is much cooler than we've had, and we are expecting much cooler temperatures today, in relative terms, of course. Highs in the low 90s with winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, with sunny conditions throughout the day. A clear sky overnight with lows in the mid-50s, winds out of the north at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then sunny tomorrow with near record high temperatures of around 104 to 106. Winds will be light and variable. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon have been updated, and we have shot up our totals in confirmed cases, which now stands at 503,002, and our deceased went up by 10 and now stands at 580. Well, that's sad news, I must admit. Ragweed pollen, though, is rated low right outside the window here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is good at 41 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is high at level 6. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.11 inches. Visibility is up to 9 miles, and relative humidity is at 78%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 65 degrees with rain. Perfect weather for a death watch, wouldn't you say? Rome is 72, cloudy with heavy rain and thunderstorms in the area, and Paris is currently under an electrical thunderstorm warning, and that could impact their electrical infrastructure. Rome is 84 and partly cloudy. Kyiv is 66 and fair. Kabul is 73 and clear. Hong Kong is 82 degrees and fair. Tokyo is 72 and cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 61 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 63 degrees and sunny. And New York is 74 degrees Fahrenheit and mostly cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Lazar Semeny of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. Albania cut diplomatic ties with Iran and expelled the country's embassy staff over a major cyber attack nearly 2 months ago that was allegedly carried out by Tehran on Albanian government websites, the Prime Minister said yesterday, Wednesday. The move by NATO member Albania was the first known case of a country cutting diplomatic relations over a cyber attack. The White House vowed unspecified retaliation against Iran for what it called a troubling precedent for cyberspace. In a statement, the White House said it has had experts on the ground for weeks helping Albania and had concluded Iran was behind the reckless and irresponsible attack and subsequent hack and leak operation. The government's decision was formally delivered in the Iranian embassy in Tirana, the capital. In an official note, Prime Minister Edi Rama said all embassy staff, including diplomatic and security personnel, were ordered to leave Albania within 24 hours. On July 15th, a cyber attack temporarily shut down numerous Albanian government digital services and websites. Rama said an investigation determined that the cyber attack wasn't carried out by individuals or independent groups and instead called it state aggression.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Staff at the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. European countries should set a price cap on Russian natural gas and seek a solidarity contribution from European oil and gas companies who are making extraordinary profits as the war in Ukraine drives up energy costs, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said yesterday, Wednesday. With winter approaching, the 27 EU members are struggling to contain an energy crisis that could lead to rolling blackouts, shuttered factories, and a deep recession. Russia has already cut gas supplies partially or entirely to 13 EU countries that use the fuel to heat homes, generate electricity, and run factories. We are facing an extraordinary situation because Russia is an unreliable supplier, but also because Russia's actively manipulating the gas market, von der Leyen told reporters in Brussels. We must cut Russia's revenues, which Putin uses to finance his atrocious war in Ukraine. She declined to recommend any price cap levels, saying they should be agreed during emergency talks among EU energy ministers tomorrow, Friday. The bloc's executive arm is putting a raft of proposals on the table for the ministers to discuss. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme aux langues de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.